So you were lucky enough to either find a video card, buy a pre-built something, maybe fix up some old hardware, and you want to know how it's doing. You want to know, say you're playing games, competitive titles, and you want to make sure you can get the most out of it you can. Or maybe you're just trying to breathe old life or new life back into an old setup, and you're trying to get as much as you can out of it. Well, there's some synthetic benchmarks out there that you can use, like Cinebench and Unigen and 3D Mark. But really, the best way to know how your computer is playing games is to play games. So as I mentioned, we're going to talk about benchmarks today, and maybe give you a little bit of help of benchmarking your computer, whether it's a new computer, pre-built, something you just built, something you refurbished, whatever the deal is. There's a couple of different tools that we can use, and you can use the synthetic benchmarks. There's stuff like Firestrike and Port Royal and all that from 3D Mark. Cinebench has like R15, R20, R23. Unigen has things like the Heaven benchmark and was it Superposition, I believe it is. So there's a bunch of different synthetics out there. They'll give you a kind of a comparison, and sometimes it works better than others. But say you want to play Minecraft or you want to play Fortnite or whatever, and you just want to get the best you can out of it. You want the best experience or the smoothest experience, and you want to know if what you're doing to the computer is going to work for you. There's a couple of different ways we can figure that out, and one of those is to do a benchmarking, or one of those is to display, say, your frames per second on the screen where you can kind of see what you're looking at. This isn't done by default. You have to actually, in many cases, select this or pick this as something that you can set up and something you can run. So what's the first step? Well, the easiest one to do is if you're just looking for, say, the frames per second, or you're just looking for a counter that you can keep up with to know if what you're doing is helping or hurting, then you can go, especially on something like Steam. If you purchase the game on Steam, now unfortunately I haven't found this on Origin, or I haven't found this on, like Rockstar or any of the others, but if you started or bought the game through Steam and you're using that, then Steam has a little utility that if you go to settings and then you go to in-game, there's a little right there near the middle or so, there's one that says on-screen display, and you can click that. Now, or you can select that and it'll give you a little drop down. It tells you like top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. Select where you want that. And then I also recommend clicking that little one underneath it, and that kind of changes the color of it so it's more visible. Now, this isn't going to do a whole lot except for just display the frames per second, but now they show up for you and you can see them. But what if you want something more substantial? What if you're trying to track what your actual gameplay is? Or maybe you've gotten that where you're tweaking it a little bit, you're just not sure if you're helping or hurting. You're trying to overclock something or undervolt something or whatever the deal may be. Maybe you've changed out something or made new memory or put in new memory, or just changed, say you've gone from it might be a title that has a couple of different ways or a couple of different interfaces or APIs, and maybe it's running DX12 or the Vulkan, or maybe DX11 and DX12, because there are some times when games will run better on one than the other one. So maybe you're trying to figure that out. Well, then you consult or go to a tool that's made by MSI, and this is called Afterburner. So we're going to go to, you can just Google MSI Afterburner. It'll pop up on the page that has a couple of utilities, and you want to download that Afterburner tool. There's going to be two parts to this. Now, download Afterburner, and then when you go to install it, it's also going to ask you if you want to install Riva Tuner. You're going to need that. You're going to need that because that's the one that actually displays everything. Afterburner will help you when you're trying to do things like overclock the memory or the power consumption or things like that. But the Riva Tuner, the Riva Statistics Tuner, will be the one that will actually help you show and benchmark those results so you can see those. So you're going to get those installed, and one of the first things I recommend doing, we're going to go to Afterburner first because there's a couple things you have to do in there that are really the most important. Under General, one of the first things I always do is I always put Start with Windows, and I also put Start Minimized because you don't want it to always pop up unless you do want to adjust everything whenever you turn the computer on. But I usually start with Windows because that way I won't forget that I've already got it running. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to monitoring. This is a little bit more involved because in the middle of there you're going to see like a little scroll menu, and it's got a bunch of different things, and it'll have like CPU temperature and CPU usage and a bunch of different things like that, GPU temperature and everything. Those, whatever you want to track, say you want the CPU temperature or the GPU temperature, whatever, anything that you want it to keep up with and track, you want to make sure is clicked on the left hand side. Now there's going to be one other thing. Anything you want to show on the screen, you want displayed, you have to go underneath that menu, and there's a little option about clicking on screen display. You want to make sure that that has a tick mark in it. Then we're going to go up and we're just going to choose those things that we want to make sure are in OSD, which is going to be the new feature that shows up there. One of the things that is not done by default is frame rate. So you're going to have to click the little checkbox on the left. You're going to have to highlight the whole bar, and then you're going to have to go underneath and click where it says on screen display, and that way in OSD will pop up. Those are the things that are going to show up on our screen in a few minutes. Okay? So we're not done yet. We're going to go to one other tab in here so we don't have to come back to it later. And that's the benchmarking tab. Now, that will show everything. This is the beginning where it'll help keep up with everything and show everything on your screen. But if you want something that's solid you can look at and go back to and read and refer to later, you're going to have to go to this area. Now, this gives you a starting, a stopping, and a location for a file, a text file that it's going to keep up with, and the ability to view that file when you get done with it. So we're going to select something to start it and something to end the benchmark, and you want to select something you're not going to use during gameplay. So you don't want to use WASD or F or Q or anything like that. You want to select something like maybe it's Control and something or Alt and something, and that will help you. That way you're not going to hit it by accident. So you got those started, you got it stopped, and you got the location. And don't worry about changing the location, because like I said, you can always come back to this drop down and you can always see that file, and you don't have to worry about trying to figure out where it is, because you can always view it from here. The next part we're going to do is, if you've hopefully already installed Reba Tuner, you're going to go ahead and click on that and open it up. Right away, like I said, the first thing I do is I usually click in the top left where it says start with Windows. That way I don't forget about it. Feel free to leave that unclicked. It's totally up to you. Then you're going to, where it says show on-screen display, you do want to make sure that's selected, because that's very important. All the stuff on the right-hand side, for the most part, has to do with your preference as to what, when it shows up, how it shows up, what it looks like, and all that stuff. But there is one thing where it says application detection. You want to ensure that that's at least on low. If you want a better chance of showing that gameplay or whatever, making sure it shows up during your gameplay, click on medium or high. But at the very least, you want to make sure it's on low. If you leave it on none, you're never going to see it. For benchmarking, your job isn't quite over yet. We're going to do one other thing. And that's in the, when you click on the button at the bottom called Setup, it's the blue button. It's going to pop you up a screen. In general, you're going to have to actually scroll down near the bottom where it says Enable Benchmarking. You have to click on that, then click Apply. In all cases, click Apply, OK, or whatever, and then minimize. You don't want to exit out of anything. Just make sure Apply or OK is clicked, and you want to minimize those tools. MSI Afterburner and Reba Tuner both get minimized. You don't want to close them. That way, when you go in to play your game, and in this case, we've done it with Cyberpunk. We've just picked it. Right now, it's in a training level, so you can go through and you can play your game for a little while. You can start your benchmark by hitting whatever it is, maybe Control and 1. You can end your benchmark, maybe it's Control and 2. And then you can go back and it prints a text file that you can look at, and it'll show up and it'll look a lot like this. It will go ahead and the more times you do this, it will keep adding on to that. So you'll keep getting a constant addition or amendment to this text file. If for some reason you want to rewrite this file every time, then in MSI Afterburner, under the benchmark tab where we were a minute ago, where we set up our buttons to start and stop, there's that last tick box that says recreate file each time. That's the one you want to click on. I don't click on it. I'd rather go ahead and track everything unless I'm restarting everything, and then I will click on it just to go ahead and rewrite the file when I'm starting a new set. Anyway, but that's where that is if you happen to need it or go back to it. Okay, we've got all those done. We got our text file. We should be able to go back and look at that now and say we run 4 different games, or maybe the same game and we'll run 5 different runs and take the average out of those 5 different runs. That gives us an idea of not only what the game we played, when we played it, what our average frame rate was, what our 1% lows and all that. All the information you could probably need for that. It doesn't track anything like temps or CPU usage or anything, but it gives you the basics and your frame rates and all that stuff. But what if you're playing a game that doesn't keep up with it, doesn't track that, doesn't do that, or a game like Counter-Strike Global Offensive that doesn't even register when you're trying to use MSI Afterburner? They actually have a benchmarking tool in here, and there are some other games I'm sure that would, but this is one example of where you might have to go looking for a benchmarking tool that is not part of the game, but somebody in the community has added to it. So in a case like that, where we do know there's a benchmarking tool for something, and somebody has found it, for a game like Counter-Strike Global Offensive or CSGO, it has one, and I'll show you where it is real quick. If you go to the Community tab in Steam, you go to Steam, open up Steam, go to the Community tab, there's a little thing underneath Workshop. So you click on Workshop, and it'll take you to the page of all the workshops for all the games. In there, you're going to go ahead and start searching for Counter-Strike, and it's with a hyphen in it. But as you start typing, you should see it pop up. You want to click that page. When you get to the Counter-Strike page, you're going to go ahead and search benchmark. Now, the first thing that should pop up is a benchmark that was created by Mr. It's a ULLETICAL, I believe it is. It's the first one there. Just click on it and then subscribe. It'll let you download that benchmark tool, but your job's not done yet. So when you go and you open up CSGO, you're going to go, one last thing you're going to do is you're going to, right before you start anything at all, you're going to go to game, and then you're going to, where about the middle of that, underneath the entry word under game, it says enable development or enable developer console. Click on that, click yes. When you start playing the game, one of the first things you can do is go ahead and hit play. It pops up on that screen, official matchmaking. When you go to official matchmaking, go to workshop maps. It should be the only one you've got in there. Click go. Now it will go ahead and run through the benchmark. You have to start the benchmark. There's a little marker in there that says start. You have to shoot and it'll start the benchmark. When it starts the benchmark, not only do you have a frames counter up on your top right hand side, or in some cases it might be the top left hand side, wherever you choose to put it, but more than likely it's going to end up in the top right hand side. It's going to run through the benchmark, and it might be going through so quickly that you can't see it. Counter-Strike actually has a little running stats counter in the top left-hand side, and if you've chosen it in Steam, it might show up on the right-hand side. But the little stats counter on the left-hand side moves so quickly you can't even keep track of it. So it's hard to tell exactly what frame rate you're looking at or what an average might be. However, since we've done this now, and we've selected the editor console, when it gets done with this benchmark, it's going to pop up a screen at the end of it that's going to show you what your stats were and what your average frame rate was. And it'll show you for each time you do that. It'll keep track of that in sort of a log type thing. This isn't anything you can write down. It doesn't tell you what your minimums or maximums or anything like that are, but it does tell you what your average frame rate was. So you've got another idea. So those are just a few of the ways. Probably the more common and the one you're going to get the most use out of is if you have the patience and you can go ahead and do the one with MSI Afterburner. It is the one that when you see videos of people doing benchmarks, or they're running through on YouTube and they're showing what their computer can do after they've upgraded it, that's the one you see most of the time that has all the stats displayed. Usually they have it in the top left of their screen or something. That's how you do that one. There are, like I said, a couple other things, including the little thing from Steam and the one that the player or the workshop one done for games like Counter-Strike. But if nothing else, maybe it helped you kind of figure out, maybe it helped you get an idea of what you've done to your computer, as if you've made it better or worse. And, well, maybe hopefully you've made it better. Hopefully I've helped you figure out something, anything at all, to kind of make things a little bit easier for you and kind of step you through and help you, try to figure out what you're doing, or try to figure out, in some cases I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing. But anyway, I hope it helped. If it has helped you in any way or you found it enjoyable, go ahead and hit the thumbs up for me. Don't forget to visit me on the other social medias. Of course, I'm out there. Subscribe to this channel if you don't mind. It really, really is a big help. Of course, if you didn't like the video, you can always hit thumbs down, but kind of tell me what it was that I had thumbs down about. Don't drink my coffee. It's mine. I'm going to drink it later. And I guess until next time, I think what I'm going to look at next, probably this weekend, is I've been working a lot with some Corsair lighting kits and fan kits and stuff like that. And I found that pretty interesting, and that might be the next thing we cover. So I think I'm going to go ahead and document that and share that with you, show it to you, whatever, for this coming weekend. So stay tuned for that. You might want to be subscribed for that. So anyway, if nothing else, I hope you have a great day. That's all I got for right now. And until next time, I'll see you later.